All right, what's up, guys? So today we have a special guest, Avery, and I want to have him on for two reasons. First of all, I stumbled upon some of his infield, and what I liked about it is that it was not anything specifically he was doing. It was more what he was not doing. He was not being overly weird. He was not being overly gamey. It just looked like kind of like smooth, which is something I always advocate on this channel. But the second thing is he's done a lot of these comparison videos, which I always find very entertaining, where he compares one coach against another coach, and he puts an infield, and he kind of critiques that. So I also want to touch on that. So do you want to give a little bit of background about yourself, man, before we dive right in?
Yeah, I followed pickup videos since I was 16. So that's over 10 years now. So even when I was in high school, I was reading the game. I was watching David D'Angelo's videos, and I sucked with girls. I was a kissless virgin up to the point of 19, hadn't even gone on a date with a girl. So I was obsessed with just taking in all this information, but it made me worse rather than better because most of it wasn't practical. And that's one of the things I like about your channel is you keep it very practical. It's results oriented. It's about how to get from point A to point B. It's not about filling your head with theory and philosophy that's interesting, but doesn't get concrete results. And so a lot of the content I followed, it got me more and more over analytical and made me avoid actually throwing myself out there more and more.
So it actually made you take a step back.
Yeah, really, it can. And a lot of guys get into this pattern of productive procrastination because you feel like, oh, I'm watching the pickup videos, it's making me better. Unless you're also taking some kind of measurable action, like messaging girls on Tinder or doing approaches or something along those lines, you're getting worse rather than better because your head is just getting overfilled with ideas that are going to paralyze you.
Yeah. I feel like it's hard to analyze truly whether advice is accurate or not if you don't have a lot of experience. Because when I hear advice now, I can just in my mind think back to my previous experience. I'm like, oh, that actually would have made sense. Or like, no, that makes no fucking sense. This guy has no idea what you're talking about. So I think that if you're not going out and you don't have any experience with women, you're not going to be able to figure out whether the advice that someone's giving you is accurate or not.
And I think that's one of the things we're going to touch on. A lot of the bigger channels are the best marketers, but they don't actually have experience with pickup in their own lives. The cream rises to the top, but it's not the cream in terms of who has the best game necessarily. It's the cream in terms of who is the best marketer, who's the best public speaker. And there's a little bit of correlation, but those are two different things, right? So you can be a great marketer and terrible at actual pickup. Yeah. And there are a lot of examples of that. And that's who I followed. And it got to a point where it was causing me a lot of anxiety and frustration, just my lack of success in dating. But eventually I hit a turning point when I was about 21. I started going out a lot. And it took me 3 or 4 years to where I was getting really good results. I was pulling girls that I was like, okay, this is a girl that I wanted back in the day, right? This is the kind of girl I wished I could get. And I'm actually getting those girls on a fairly consistent basis. But that didn't necessarily need to take that long. It took that long because I didn't have the best advice to follow. So I was just kind of throwing myself out there and trying new things. So that's why I wanted to get into teaching this, because people saw me out and they're like, hey, you're doing really well. Like, do you do coaching? Do you help other people with this? And it's like, sure, I'll try. Let's do some free coaching. Why not? And then
I think your story is very common. Like a lot of guys who join Playing with Fire, and Jay Melville talks about this all the time. His hardest clients are the guys who've been studying pickup for a while. And I've noticed this as well. Are the guys who've read all these, Tinder ebooks, and they have all these erroneous concepts in their mind, and have to almost unteach them shit before I can teach them shit.
Right. I had to unteach myself a lot of stuff because I had a lot of bad habits. I would try stuff from the mystery method that just didn't apply to me. Like there's one I remember where he says, don't stand face to face to a girl, stand side to side. So at work once I was with a girl I had a crush on, and I went up to her and I was like, does this make you a little uncomfortable, like standing right in front of her? And I said, well, what about this? You feel better now, right? And I thought that was cool, right? Because I had no experience whatsoever. And I just was full of theory. And I got to a point where I was getting results. And that's why I got into coaching, because I had made the transition from being someone who's failing in this area to being successful in this area. And I want to help people not have to take as long to make that progress in their own lives. It doesn't have to take 5 years to go from terrible to getting good results.
Yeah, for sure. I actually remember when I first read the game, I was so intrigued by mysteries part. I was I remember I think I was 21 at the time. I went to my local college bar, and I remember it was an off night. It was maybe a Monday or Tuesday. There was 2 chicks sitting at the bar, and I was really nervous, so I got drunk, of course, which is what I did back in those days. And I approached those girls, and I remember at first they were so into me. up until I started doing all this weird shit. Like, think of a number from 1 to 10. They're like, well, what's your major, dude? Like, you don't have to do this, man. Like, we like you. And I'm like, no, who lies more? And I remember by the end of it, the girls were like, yeah. So it was nice to meet you. Like, I'm like, why didn't this work? My magic tricks were so good. You know?
Yeah, the mystery method, I don't like, a lot of his advice is good if you have certain characteristics, but if you're someone who lacks confidence, if you're someone like most guys, it would be pretty nerve-wracking to go up to a hot girl and just like be very direct, to just make your intentions clear and try to lead things like that. That's anxiety provoking for a large percentage of guys. And if you're that kind of guy and you use the mystery method as a way to like go indirect and use tricks to avoid telling her you like her, it ends up totally backfiring because you have to be really, really confident in yourself already. And then you can add those as ways to be more influential. Like they have good principles behind them, but you have to be super confident to pull it off.
What a lot of people forget is that Mystery was a magician before he was a pickup artist. So for him, doing magic tricks is very congruent. And he's probably pretty fucking good at it because he was a magician, right? Well, you know, that's like what, 0.001% of people watching this video work as magicians. Like, it's not going to be as congruent to someone who's like a fucking, you know, bro or something like that.
Yeah, it really is the mystery method. It's the method that works for him, but a lot of the stuff won't work for you until it'll work for him, but it won't work for everyone.
Yeah, for sure. So let's kind of try to set down a baseline for how some guys can figure out whether some content is, you know, bullshit or whether it's legit.
Okay, like a channel?
Yeah.
Whether a channel is good or I think the biggest red flag for me when it comes to pickup, it's changed a little bit lately because of political correctness, but is whether the channel has infield and do they see normal in that infield. So if a channel doesn't have infield, it's a very big red flag because in terms of if you're a coach and you want to spread your message and you think your game is good, there's no better marketing tool than showing infield of yourself approaching women. I mean, the most popular videos in the whole pickup community over the last 10 years, a lot of those were infield videos. Any video that went viral pretty much has been an infield video. So if you have any marketing intelligence and if you have game, there's no reason not to post infield of yourself unless you don't want to expose yourself as a phony.
The only other thing could be, I agree with you in principle. The only thing could be that getting your channel shut down.
Right. That's something that's like this last year has changed, right? So since about 2019, there were a number of channels that got banned that had infield. All those channels were showing footage in a bedroom, in a private location, right? Which is, it's not surprising that ended up getting banned. Like that's pretty extreme. They were proving they were pulling, but like they were proving a little bit too much perhaps. So some people lately do have that mindset. Some people have pulled down their infield and that's a recent change, but that's only happened in the last 6 months or so.
Yeah. I will kind of expand on what you said. I think that more generally, it should be proof that they're getting laid. And so, for example, some like for my niche, like, you know, there's not really going to be that much infield because really, you know, girls come straight to my place. But what my proof is, I post lay reports with all the screenshots from start to finish. So I remember when I got into like doing, you know, online dating and stuff like that, there's a lot of people posting screenshots. And what I call them the glory screenshots, where it's like it's just that one screenshot where like it looks like, you know, this guy's a pimp. But I could tell just by like the very subtle things that it actually did not go down. Just by like I could kind of see under the cracks. So I would be like, hey man, post the rest of the screenshots. It's like, oh, why do you need to see that? I'm like, because I know you didn't fuck the girl. I know you like got blown out in that screenshot. So my whole thing is like, even to this day, if you want to share, you know, stories, unless you're asking for feedback, you know, if you want to just, you know, kind of like low key brag in my group, you have to show screenshots from start to finish, right? Because I hate fucking those bullshit, you know, like where the person's just making it seem like something happened and did. And I feel like this is one thing that, you know, let's just say RSD does, is they have all this infield where it looks like shit's about to go down. But if you're actually experienced in game, you can kind of see like, you know, like the rug being pulled under. And then, you know, like literally 30 seconds later, it didn't go down. This is what I think.
There are pulls.
Yeah, and then Todd actually called this out. It's like the glory. So I think that if you're going to post proof, it should be like, you know, obviously you don't have to show a video of you banging the girl or something like that, but you should have like, it shouldn't be like the glory stuff. It should be like actual concrete, you know, proof.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, one thing, if you're watching infield, and a lot of channels do have infield, how are the girls reacting? Because if you don't have a lot of experience, it's kind of hard to tell what good game looks like on the guy's perspective. He might say something ballsy and you're like, damn, he's so savage. Like prank videos, for example. There's a lot of prank videos where they say shit that's like, oh man, he's got balls. But the girl, if you look at her, she's giving like an uncomfortable laugh and she's tensing up. Pay attention to the way the girls are responding more than the way the guy's responding. Because in reality, the best game isn't too flashy. It's pretty normal. Like it's like a normal conversation. It doesn't look, and that it puts you in a weird position because if you want to shock people and get a lot of views, think of, Julian back in the day, you go all out, right? You do crazy shit. That's a little bit awkward, but it gets people to pay attention. But effective game isn't that. It's being normal, being confident, having good social intelligence, and knowing how to lead things forward and be sexual. Right? It's not about saying savage things, right? That like, whoa, yeah, damn, he's a badass. That's not what effective game looks like. So pay attention to the way the girl is reacting. Does she look comfortable? Is she making strong eye contact? Is she asking questions? Is she engaged? Things like that. How much is she investing? More so than what the guy is doing.
Dude, 100% agree with that. Like good game, J-Mov also talks about this. Like good game shouldn't be like anything fucking crazy. It's not super fancy. Same thing with a good text game. It shouldn't be like overly, like, oh my God, he said that. Like, sure, sometimes I throw in like some like pretty funny jokes. That's just because that's my personality. But honestly, like that's what I like about like when I was watching your infield. Like it's not like super duper fucking crazy. You're talking about like the girl's major and stuff. Like you're leading the conversation. And, it's like it's clearly going from point A to point B. You're building comfort. You're kind of like throwing in some subtle things. Your body language is on point. So it's not like, like watching your infield, it's not like, oh, shit, he did that. It's just like, oh, okay. It's almost like to the outside, it's almost like a little boring, to be honest. That's kind of what a good game is because it's not really relevant to you. Like, it's almost like, oh, okay. But you can kind of recognize that it feels smooth and you can recognize about the girl's body language. Does she look like she wants to get the fuck out of there or does she want to keep the conversation going?
Yeah. Body language is huge in terms of looking at infield. How is the girl reacting?
Yeah. I think another huge thing, in my opinion, is what are the claims the coach makes, right? So I think this is a very easy trap to fall into if you're, on this side of, the business where because everyone's making crazy claims. So you're like, okay, well, if I don't promise this guy 20 lays in the first week, I'm not going to be able to compete with these other products who are promising that. But unfortunately, like if something sounds way too fucking good to be true, like way too fucking good to be true, it probably is. This is like the equivalent of like someone comes up to you and says, hey, listen, if you follow a proper training protocol, you eat a healthy diet, you get a good amount of sleep, in a year, you can be, in 3 months, you will see definite results. In a year, you can be in pretty great shape. In 2-3 years, you can be like pretty fucking ripped, right? There's a shortcut. You can take steroids. They will shake. Maybe I'll do it in a third of the time. It's not going to happen overnight. You still have to put in the work, right? So that's kind of the same thing. Like a weekend boot camp, you're not going to go from fucking sucking balls to being a major pivot. It's not going to happen. It can give you a push in the right direction. But yes, like over time, if you're willing to put in the work, you're willing to like work on fucking overcoming, your shortcomings, getting slowly, desensitizing yourself to anxiety, learning, proper, conversation structure and all that, leading, getting over all your anxieties. Yes, you can drastically change yourself. But, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen just from reading the product. Like action is going to be a huge component to anything. So I think also if you're seeing crazy claims, like just buy this ebook and be a pimp forever, like not going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, it's a skill and any skill takes a long time to develop.
Yeah, almost not so much as long, but it's more like you have to put in work yourself. Like no product, no video is going to do it for you, right? You have to apply the concepts.
Right, and that's the other point is if you applied their concepts, could you guarantee results? So are they talking very theoretical, very philosophical, and you could listen to what they're saying for hours, and it's not guaranteed that you're going to, say, get new girls' numbers, you're going to get new girls' dates. Right. If it's not practical, then there's a good chance you're just kind of in this hamster wheel where they're giving advice that makes you feel good about yourself because you're like, oh, I had this new insight. But think about, does this new insight translate to some specific kind of result? Like, are they telling me, well, if you want to get better at pickup, you need to go out and approach regularly and you need to keep track of your progress? Like, is it based on actual action steps that you can measurably work on? Or is it like, well, you need to understand what masculinity is. You need to heal your childhood trauma.
Right.
Sometimes those things might be important, but it has to be built on the foundation of specific action steps. And if they're not giving you specific action steps, they probably don't care about getting you results, or they don't know how to get you results. It's like if you had a gym program that was like about visualizing yourself being really ripped, but it never gave you the actual workout plan, right? It never gave you the diet and the lifts that you should be doing. Well, then it's useless.
Yes. For sure, man. 100% agree with that. There should be tangible results. And I think you should also be able to evaluate, like, for example, if okay, how crazy is this? Say, you got on board with some fitness program and it was pretty expensive and all that shit. Maybe you bought several, and 2 years later, your body looked exactly the same as it did now. And then you were fighting. You're saying, no, man, this is the best fitness program. I'm like, all right, so how much progress have you made on your bench? Well, nothing, I'm still weak as fuck, but like, this is the best, this guy says that. But that's what happens sometimes with these pickup companies. Like, I think RSD did an amazing job of convincing anyone that they're not actually sucking while they're still sucking. Like, bro, okay, how many girls have you been with, the past 2 years? Well, like, there's like my left hand, my right hand, but, so I think that's also, it's like, okay, like, this is what I like with playing with fire. I always ask this question with someone, who's in, like, all right, how much progress have you made? Like, not in terms of your emotions, which is great. I love it that you found a community here. But how much progress have you made in terms of your actual results with women since you joined? That's like the shit that I want to look at.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, is it falsifiable? Right. That's a question. Is it falsifiable? That's a scientific way to go about it. Like, look at The Secret. Have you heard of The Secret?
Yes.
The visualization book that's like, imagine a Lamborghini and you get the Lamborghini. The thing about something like The Secret is if anything you visualize happens, you're like, that's proof. Like, it works. The secret works. But what about the 99,000 things you visualize that didn't come into your life, right? It's not falsifiable. You can't disprove it because you only see the hits. The same thing applies to pickup advice. If you can only see like, oh, I felt better about myself after watching that, or like, that girl, she seemed to be smiling more, that's not falsifiable. If you're not going out there and testing things, like approaching girls, asking them for numbers, getting yeses or nos, then you're basically reading The Secret. You're basically doing The Secret. You have no way to know if you're making progress or if you're headed in the right direction until you have some measurable way to say, yes, I'm making progress, or no, I'm not making progress.
Yeah, you should be just like you should be able to quantify, with your workout. Like, okay, I'm getting stronger on lifts. I've gained more muscle. I'm lower body fat. I look better. My weight is different. Should be the same exact thing with this kind of stuff. I think another one, this is really odd that I observed, but I really, as a side note, I'm sure a lot of my viewers know this, like, I don't really talk about leg count that much. I don't really care. I stopped counting when I got to 30 or 40, but like, I have a rough idea of what my leg count is. Like, if you ask me, like, if someone asks me that question, I won't duck it. Like, I'll be like, well, it's probably between 300 and 500, something like that. Like, I can give a ballpark and it's going to be within that range, And I think that if someone tries really hard when pressed for that question, to really, really hard to avoid that question, I think then that's like you have like something that they're insecure about. So like, that's another thing I've observed with like, some other coaches that like, someone will like, for example, JMO, if he loves that question, he asked me that question like 5
probably
times
his favorite question.
Yeah, his favorite question, right? But like, I have no, like, even though it's not something I care about, I have no problem answering that question. But I've seen some coaches try to dodge it with such determination. I'm like, why? Like, who cares? Like, and that to me, when someone's trying to dodge that question, it's like, okay, that's probably because then you haven't really fucked that many girls. Like, that's the only reason you would be dodging that question, and you're embarrassed about it. I think there's nothing wrong with not having half fucked a lot of girls, but there's only something wrong with it when you're trying to put on a front like you did fuck so many girls, when you're all a mess of pimp, when in reality, you're not. So I think that's another thing that I just kind of, noticed, let's just say.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, so I think we kind of got that there. So I want to get into some of your comparison videos, which I've enjoyed. So what are some of the favorite comparisons that you've done?
Favorite comparisons. I would say, so one of my favorites just personally is TripAdvice versus, the videos are on private now, and we might talk about why that is. But the one with TripAdvice, and I think it's against Honest Signals off the top of my head, because it's just, TripAdvice is a guy with like 800,000 subscribers, and he has one infield video on his entire channel, and it was hard to find, but I found it. And the level of awkwardness, discomfort, and he doesn't show any closes. He doesn't show him getting the girl's numbers. It's like he shows the opener, And it's like, this is a cool opener. And then he doesn't show the rest, implying that he didn't even get the girls' numbers. But he looks like, I don't know, like a nerdy 15-year-old in high school is like trying to talk to the hot cheerleader that he knows he's out of her league. And he's like this. He has no confidence in himself whatsoever. He has no idea what to say. That is one of my favorites. And the reason I make those videos is because you see through a lens of someone who's experienced, you can point out, okay, this guy clearly has no idea what he's doing. But if you're new and you haven't done a lot of approaches, you have no way to know. If the girl gives her number or she like laughs, you're like, oh, well, she probably is pretty good, right? But if you actually analyze it and look more deeply, you can see the flaws in his approach and how, such a basic level. Like he's as bad as like people I've coached. He's as worse than many of them on their first approach, even if they haven't approached in years or like they're virgins. Like he's that bad. And the same thing is true for Dave Perota. He has a book called Conversation Casanova. So he's a conversation expert, which is really ironic because in his approaches, they're all about 30 seconds long. And the extent of the conversation is he says, oh, hey, do you know where the nearest Starbucks is? And the girl says, oh, it's over there. And he says, actually, I wanted to tell you that you're cute. And she says, oh, thank you. And then he'll ask some basic question, are you from here? And she says, yes. And he says, we should go on a date sometime. That's it, right? That's the extent of each conversation. He never gets them to invest or has a real interaction, make some kind of emotional connection. It's just the most basic questions, which is okay to ask those questions. But he could not take it any further than that, even though he's a supposed expert in conversation. It shows so obviously how there are a lot of people who are charlatans in any self-help industry. And that's what sucks because there are always ones who are pissed off at all the charlatans and they make content because of that to go against that. But a lot of people are like, well, this industry is full of frauds. They're all fake. Pickup probably doesn't even work. Let's go black pill or whatever, because there are like 90%, 80%, whatever snakes or charlatans, and only a very small percentage that have actually mastered the skill set that they talk about.
Yeah, for sure, man. I like your who do you compare the How to Beast guy to?
Austin Summers.
Austin, yeah. And I think Austin is pretty underrated in my opinion. Again, I've never met him. I could be wrong on this, but just from what I've seen. And How to Beast, while I think he's probably a really nice guy, he seems like he's really on point with business and fitness and all that. His cold approach is not that great. And that's okay. That's not his specialty. But you can't use him as an example of pinnacle game because he's just he just doesn't really know cold approach that well.
If he titled his videos easy way to get a girl's numbers works 10% of the time, I would be fine with it. But he says things like works 100% of the time, right? He claims
no one works 100% of the time. There's nothing I do that works 100% of the time.
No. And definitely what he's doing is not close to the most optimal way of going about it. So if he made videos talking about here's my experience and talked about that he's kind of a newbie and was just trying to be inspirational, that would be great. I wouldn't have any problem with that. But it said he's positioning himself as an expert when he's clearly not in those videos. In his fitness videos, yeah, I wouldn't criticize them. I mean, he knows more about fitness than me. He seems like he's got that area on point. Or if he was talking about marketing, I would listen to his advice. But pickup, he's being disingenuous in the way he presents the information.
Yeah, I agree with that. So who, in your opinion, right now, the top, let's just say top 5 guys for, that you would personally follow for cold approach?
I wrote a list. So I would say Honest Signals is, and I couldn't put it in an exact order. Honest Signals is way up there. Yeah. And
when you say Honest Signals, you're talking about Austin, you're talking about Vadim?
Vadim.
Okay, interesting.
Because Austin has his own separate channel now.
I'm not too familiar with Vadim, to be honest.
Vadim, he's not a very good marketer. He's an example of someone whose YouTube channel is not doing very well, even though his game is among the best. It's really, really, really good, but he just doesn't really seem to know what to do in terms of marketing. And so his channel is slowly dying down, which is sad to see, whereas some of the people who don't know what they're talking about are doing a great job.
Does he have any full videos? Because I've seen a lot of his joke videos, kind of simple pickup style, which are funny as fuck, but I feel like that's not enough to make a judgment call. Does he have any videos?
He made a total transition. That's how he built his channel initially, and then he stopped doing those videos and showed a lot of very he showed pulls, makeouts, all kinds of stuff. So he had a lot of good full infields where he's just being himself as opposed to playing some character. And he's not too over the top, and he's very smooth and calibrated and witty, which is a lot think of a toned down version of Russell Brand. Russell Brand without being so overtly sexual. He makes it sexual. he's always has some clever thing to say that makes the girl like like lose herself in laughter for a moment, but he never goes over the line where he's making girls uncomfortable. So he's really good at towing that line between not being boring, but not being overt, so sexual that you make people uncomfortable. And he's definitely one of the best. And he clearly has a very good understanding of the technicals of how to move something forward, how to get logistics and all that kind of stuff. So he's definitely up there.
Okay. Who else would you say?
And this one is the most unfortunate. Richard from Street Attraction. It's unfortunate because his channel got banned from YouTube. BBC made a documentary focused on his channel, and they basically, BBC was like, "Are you okay with having this channel on YouTube? Do you think that's good for feminism or whatever?"
Yeah, that was
and they deleted his channel. But if you can, like, I don't know if he has content that you can still find somewhere, but he was just really good at being very sexual, and he was aggressive, but he showed you what you could get away with, like how forward you could be just by being really charismatic and not taking anything seriously.
Uh-huh.
Which is definitely like, it's one of the best ways you can go about it is being a little bit, it's better to take risks that will get you rejected sometimes than to play it so safe that you never ask the girl's number, you never go in for the kiss. Like that's what most guys do. And he shows you what the opposite of that looks like. And yeah, he's really, really good.
Uh-huh.
I would say other than him, Tay Social is pretty good.
Yeah, another guy. You're naming all people who I know I've heard of.
Not familiar with. He's very popular. He has like over 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. He does no verbal game whatsoever. His verbal game is actually not good. And I think he would be more effective overall if his verbal game was good, but he shows how important just the overall vibe and confidence and the intention that you're putting out through the way you carry yourself and the way you look the girl in the eyes. Like he's just very masculine, very sexual, and his intentions are very clear, and the girls just kind of fall into that. Like they just like kind of melt, if you will. And he's like the Italian painter that ravishes you kind of stereotype, right? And he shows what that looks like, and he shows that, look, even if your verbal game, you don't really know what to say in terms of being super witty, if you have those fundamentals down of just being confident, holding strong eye contact, being sexual, you can still get really good results.
Uh-huh.
So he's unique in that, and he shows a weakness that a lot of people have. And then the last one who I'd say is really good is James Marshall. And he's probably the most similar to me of the five because he's not the most flashy. He has very normal conversations with women, but he's grounded, he's confident, he's unreactive, and he knows how to lead things forward, right? He doesn't do things that make you go, holy shit, that was cool, as much as some of these other ones do. But he shows you what solid fundamentals look like and what effective game actually should look like.
Okay. So first of all, I can't disagree or agree with this list because I'm just not familiar with any of these people. What I know about James, I've never watched Infield of him. So yeah, I can't comment on this. I've never met him. I know he hangs out with, what's his name? Sasha Dating. Yeah, which I think kind of sucks, to be honest, in my opinion.
I think that's strange.
Yeah, he's a strange man. And then, but the other person he hangs out with is the Australian guy who wears the glasses.
Bradicus.
No. Not Bradicus. Okay. Bradicus is different. What's his name?
Alex?
No. It fucking eludes me. But he's that guy. I actually think is solid. I've seen his in game as his infield, and he is actually very solid from what I've seen. It's like some fucking Australian guy. I forget his name.
The funny thing about Sasha and James hanging out with Sasha. So I made a video about James, and he saw it, and he was like, "Hey man, do you want to do an interview? I saw your video." And right after that, I made a video about Sasha in which I basically said Sasha like has no social intelligence whatsoever. He's being really creepy and uncalibrated. And unless a girl just thinks that he's like, oh my God, like I just love the way this guy looks, he's going to turn off a lot of girls with how weird and awkward he is. And my guess, he never actually followed through on the interview. My guess is he might have seen that video and been like, oh, well, he's kind of going hard on my pal. So that, can't do an interview with him.
Yeah, I hate shit like that because everyone's entitled to their opinion. Like, for example, everyone knows I'm pretty good friends with John, and a lot of people don't like him, which is fine. Like, you can have your opinion. Like, I won't say anything negative about my friend ever, but like, you can have your opinion. Like, to me, that's not like a deal breaker if you don't like one of my friends. So Tay, I'm not that familiar with. I know 2 people who say good things about him. That's pretty much all I know. Who was Vadim? Again, very much not familiar with him. I know Austin a lot better, and I think Austin is very underrated. I've never met him.
They're similar. I mean, Austin was basically he was his assistant. He was Vadim's assistant. So Austin and Vadim worked together for a long period of time before Austin created his own channel.
Yeah, for sure. So people who I've met in real life that I can vouch for would be J-Mo. Like, and people wonder, like, oh, does he really? Yeah, he has fucked all those girls. Basically, he's obsessed with fucking, like, way more than I am. Like, to me, like, you know, I fuck a girl, then maybe, like, I eat something, I fucking play with my dog. Like, he goes for girl 3, 4, 5, 6, you know, same night. So,
J-Mo, I want to say about him, about J-Mo. He's someone who, like, his philosophy and values, I don't know how much I agree with that.
Yes.
But his strategy for game is pretty similar. It's the most similar to mine in terms of the way he structures things, and it makes a lot of sense, and it's very practical. Yes. So, like, I can't criticize him in terms of his method. It makes sense to me.
Yeah, for sure. I think another one is Jason James. He has I'm not gonna say his job, but he has, like, a very professional job, so he never shows his face. But I have seen infield of him. I have hung out with him, and he is, like, solid. Who else do I like a lot? Well, those are I good things about the surgical guys. I never met them directly, but we have.
Yeah, I would have mentioned them actually. They're very technical.
I think they're, like, too technical, but yeah, other than that.
Yeah, they might be too technical to the point that if you watch their content and you don't have some of the basics taken care of, you're not good at just approaching and being direct, and you don't have some level of confidence. If you get into all that technical shit, I've seen people follow them and they just overwhelm themselves with the theory, but their actual game, like the guys who their coaches, has all been really good from what I've seen. Like, they're actually good at what they do.
Yeah. I think actually the guys who have the best game are the guys who are not even in the community. They're just, like, naturals who, you know, I ran into or was introduced to friends. Like, well, the guy who I learned the most from, I won't say his name because he has, you know, like a legit job, but he's just, like, a natural guy. He saw a few videos, but he's just, like, a natural who understands social dynamics really, really well. Like, that guy has better game than pretty much, like, everyone I've seen in the community, right? He just, like, to him, it's not even a challenge picking up girls anymore, so he never gave a shit about, like, he works, you know, he fucking invents shit, right? So he's like, dude, I don't care about, like, fucking making infield. He's like, I'm gonna fucking, you know, start this multi-million-dollar company or something like that.
I think it's kind of like the guy that was always in good shape, like, was on the football team in high school, and he just always killed it, and it's pretty easy for him to get really ripped. Yeah. Whereas the guys who get into pickup and who end up teaching it, a lot of them are, like, the super scrawny guy or, like, the super obese guy who they can make a ton of progress, but it's not easy to get past the level of the guy who is always in good shape. Like, there's still a certain amount of disadvantage that you're starting with. So a lot of the best guys, like, think Craig Ferguson or Russell Brand, like, there's no one in the pickup community who's on their level that I can think of, right? Yeah. They're just on a whole other level. And I mean, that should be expected because they're, you know, charismatic celebrity comedians, right? But there are some coaches who are far better than the vast majority of people just in society in general.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think also in order to teach, you have to have started at a low point, because I think the guy who's always at a high point, he won't be able to relate to someone who sucks.
That's a big problem.
Yeah, I see this happen, like, time and time again with, like, some of my friends who are, like, you know, like, more on the natural side. And then I'll tell them about my clients and they're like, why are these guys such, like, faggots? I'm like, no, they're not faggots, man. Like, they always struggled with this. They're like, it's not that fucking hard. I'm like, well, actually, it was hard for me at one point too. So I think you have to suck, you know, at some point to be able to teach guys who suck.
Yeah, because then you've been through it. I mean, you've taken the steps. You've seen what works. You've seen what doesn't. You've seen how difficult it is and all the psychology behind it. And if you've always been good, that just looks stupid to you. You're like, just approach, bro. Like, what are you doing? Like, it's hard to understand unless you've been through it.
Yeah, for sure, man. So I want to touch on kind of a different note. You know, you had a whole thing with RSD where you made, like, a pretty fair review video. What exactly was the story there?
The story with RSD. So I made a video about Todd V, who is no longer part of RSD, but he used to be a part of RSD. Penguin Zero, who's a really popular YouTuber, he made a video showing one of Todd's approaches, and he made him look like the cringiest person on the planet. And honestly, like, his jokes are pretty good, and he really made Todd look bad. Like, he did a very good job making Todd look like he was some kind of incel. And that video did really well. It was really popular. So I basically made a reaction video explaining the context, because that video of Todd was a video in which he was trying to show his students, the guy who was filming, he was trying to show them they had a lot of anxiety. They were unable to approach, and they were like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. So he's like, let me show you. This is the worst it can possibly go. And he went into a bad set that he knew was unlikely to go anywhere. And from the beginning, it's going badly, but he decides to just keep it going as far as possible just to show that the world's not going to end, right? Like, it doesn't matter how cringy it gets. The world's not going to end. And although, you know, that's not something I'd usually recommend doing, like just making girls uncomfortable to show that, you know, it's not going to hurt you. It's not necessarily the most effective strategy. Plowing is what it's sometimes called, but that's not what it isn't at all what Penguins made it look like. Like, it's a totally different context. So I wanted to expose that basically. So actually, if anything, that video is more defending.
Positive.
It was defending someone who had been attacked. And then I made another video about, I think it was Todd versus RSD Julian. And yeah, within 24 hours, those videos both received copyright strikes, which, if you don't know anything about YouTube, a copyright strike is basically, if you make a YouTube video, you own that content. It's your copyright protected material. So if you see that on YouTube, some of your content, you can copyright strike them. But the thing is, if you're reviewing content, you're reacting to it, like Twitch is all reaction videos, for example, that's protected by fair use. You're allowed to do that even if it's copyright protected material. Legally, you're allowed to do that. But YouTube's system, if you strike someone, if you say, this is my material, automatically it just gets taken down and the channel receives a strike. And if you get 3 strikes, your channel gets completely deleted. So it's something you have to be careful about. And there were a couple things that were frustrating about that. One is that if they did both of those videos, you can copyright strike multiple videos at the same time from the same account, and they'll just get 1 strike. But whoever did it, they actually had 2 different accounts strike each video separately, making me receive 2 strikes instead of 1 strike, which meant my channel went from never having any problems to being on the verge of being deleted. If I have 1 more strike, it's deleted. And so, yeah, that was frustrating. The other thing that's frustrating is that if you watch RSD's videos, they use copyright material all the time. Like they'll use movies, like 2 minutes of a movie. Obviously, they don't own the copyright to like a Hollywood movie without context, just to like show some kind of point. But they're not even reacting to it, and it's fiction. And you're not actually supposed to do that with fiction. With nonfiction, it's okay legally, but if it's fiction, it's a lot more sketchy. So they're doing the same thing that they're almost getting my channel banned for doing, which is obviously frustrating. It's a situation that has happened to other people. RSD does this to, I know they've done it to John Anthony. They've done it to Ice White, someone called Ice White, and others too. Anyone who makes a video about RSD, they have someone that just like copyright strikes all their videos. I have theories as to why that is, having looked into it, but it's kind of messed up. It's kind of like, I mean,
they're hardcore abusing the system, right? The idea behind this rule is that I don't take like a fucking 2-hour movie, cut 30 seconds of it, and I'm like, I put it on my channel. Or for example, I don't take one of your videos, and then just put it on my channel, right? So the basis behind this rule obviously makes sense. But then they completely abuse the rule because, so what? I'm not allowed to like critique like your content, right? Like I'm not even allowed to so they basically hardcore abuse the rule, and they just throw, the fact that they have a little bit more organizational power than, other companies around to basically, control the narrative that exists about them. Because someone might, before taking a boot camp, look up like, is RSD legit? But if all the videos that fucking said they're bullshit are down, then that person, can't.
Yeah, and that might be what they're doing, because there are videos of RSD. There's one by someone called Charisma King, and he has a video about RSD, like, are they legit? And he basically says they are, but that video's still around. Like that video did not get deleted.
And just to be clear, everything we're saying is opinion, so this is not fact. It's just opinion that we're stating. Yeah,
and so it's a situation where I may have to, like, legally what they're doing is illegal. Like, it's illegal to abuse that system. And you'd have to have very, very low understanding of copyright to not know why they're abusing the system by just copyright striking everyone who has any content of theirs, even if it's reviewing it. Technically that's illegal. You're definitely not supposed to do that, but I think they feel safe doing it, knowing that, most random YouTubers like aren't going to contact a lawyer and like pay all the fees and like have to go through this whole process. I'm debating what I'm going to do myself. I tried sending a very polite email saying, look, I'll take down the videos, no big deal. Like, just take down the strikes, because I lost 75% of my traffic because I had to take down every video on my channel that had anything from anyone else. So that was like a significant portion of my videos. So that's really hurting my business. And
which is a shame, because this is one of the things your channel is known for. You're comparing, you're like, okay, it's like entertaining to watch the way you put it together. Like, and it's like based on facts. Like, okay, this is what this guy does good. This is what that guy does good. There's like no reason why you shouldn't be able to do that,
Right. And so, yeah, so it's a weird situation. I mean, it will get resolved eventually. I don't want to have to do it legally. Like, I'd rather just be able to do it in a, civil way, but I may have no choice depending on how it goes down.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, I'll support you either way. So yeah. I mean, I just wanted to get that story out there. I think it's just, it's a little shame, like, dude, I would be on, like, I would want people to, like, as long as they're like, as long as they give me a chance to respond, I'm totally cool with anyone reviewing my content. Like, sometimes people try to call me out, like, oh, dude, I saw this was on 2 different phones. I'm like, yeah, I used to have an Android, now I have an iPhone. Congratulations, Sherlock, you cracked the case. Like, so I want people to review my content, like, fuck yeah. It's only really that if you have something to hide, that you don't want people to review your content, I think.
Yeah, there's something going on. I don't want to get into all the deals. I have an idea of what might be going on. They have reasons to hide their brand, basically. Yeah. But it's, it's not we're doing it in the most ethical way possible. They could have just sent me an email like, hey man, I saw you have a video about RSD. We prefer if you like didn't have that out there. I'm like, okay, no big deal. It's one video. I'll put it on my, like, somewhere private, right? I'll put it on my Patreon or some shit. Right. But they didn't go about that. Instead, they did it in the most aggressive way possible, going for 2 strikes instead of 1, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, it's a shame. All right, so another thing I want to touch on is I'd like to ask this question. If you could, like, go back and give your earlier self, like, your 20-year-old, 18-year-old self, like, some advice, like, what would you, that would really cut your learning curve in terms of learning cold approach, getting girls, all that stuff. What would you tell yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it's not something too, like, magic pilly or crazy. Wow. It's start fucking doing approaches. Like, 18, I'm in college, start approaching girls on campus. Just start doing approaches and do them consistently, and accept that the first number of approaches are going to be pretty awkward. You have a lot of social anxiety. A lot of them are not going to go great, but that's the only way to get better. That you're actually making yourself worse by just constantly getting in theory, constantly overloading yourself with information, and not making it practical. Treat it like you're trying to get in better shape at the gym. That's what I tell myself. Treat it like you're trying to get in better shape from the gym. Use that kind of strategy as opposed to just taking information and telling yourself that means you're getting better.
So yeah, take action. The only issue I would have with that is that you don't want to develop on college the reputation of being like the cold approach guy, especially if it's like a smaller school. Like, if it's a state school with 550,000 people, that's not going to happen. But if it's like maybe like 4,000, like, I would say it'd be weird. My big advice for college kids would be actually to, if unless you're like super fucking against it, join a frat. Like, it's going to be literally, I had my junior year of college, I wasn't in a frat, but my friends were, and actually wound up living in that house because they need a roommate. Like, there was a Jewish frat, and they wanted to save money. How ironic. And I was half Jewish, so they're like, oh man, come on in and live there. And dude, like, it was insane. Like, if I could have access to what I had back then, like, it wouldn't be comical how many girls I'd have. Dude, we'd have parties like 3-4 nights a week, 70% girls, 30% guys. All the girls were like really horny. Like, my room was literally upstairs, best logistics ever. Like, it was like insane. So put yourself in situations like that. Like, after college, you will only get those situations again like that if you're famous or like you have extremely high status. It's not going to just randomly happen. So I would say do that.
And by the way, if you're approaching girls in college, if girls are getting uncomfortable, they're not giving you responses, just leave, like, say, have a good day, be positive. Like, it was nice meeting you. Don't push it unnecessarily far. That's how you get a bad reputation. If you're like really sexual and really pushy, which a lot of guys, like, some advice says to do that, so they take that to heart. Don't do that. Like, if a girl is giving you negative responses and you're not sure, just don't be pushy. Just like, okay, it was nice meeting you. Have a good day. Maybe go for the number. But if she really, really, if you get any negative responses, don't be pushy, err on the side of just being polite. And
Are you
just
familiar with who Shawshank is, the dude from OSU?
No, I'm not.
All right, dude, this is crazy. So there was he was this guy that was doing mass spam approach at Ohio State University. And there was actually some chick started a Reddit thread about, like, hey, has anyone been approached by this guy? And there was like 200 fucking comments. Like every single girl in that school was like, holy shit, this guy is so creepy. He approached me. Like it was just literally like everyone was shitting on him. So I definitely don't want to be that guy. But that guy was like extremely socially awkward. He was just like,
it's hard to do that. I had a semester where I did at least like 500 approaches, and I was going pretty direct. I would say in college, you don't need to go super direct. Like you can say something like, hey, I like your style, right? You don't have to be like, I thought you were hot. You can just say something that like says you're interested and you want to meet her.
I think it's even better to actually do that, to say like, I like to not go super direct in college.
Right, because you don't want to come across too sexual. That's how you could get a reputation, but it would take a lot to do that. Like I've never once had a problem with that, even on the semester where I did like 500 approaches. I did approach the same girl twice, 2 or 3 times, which was a little awkward, but nothing came of that, right? That's all that happened. I've only seen anyone have a problem if they're being really, really aggressive and to the point that girls are like, Jesus Christ, like why won't this guy leave me alone?
Right. Yeah, we're creeping the girl out. I think another thing with college, like the clothes can be so easy. Like literally, like, hey, what are you up to this weekend? Oh, not much. I'm like, cool. You want to go drink? You want to have a drink this weekend? You want to, me and my, I'm gonna have a bottle of wine. You want to come join me? Like the clothes can be so easy. Like everyone in college just wants to party and drink. Just invite girls to have a drink at your place. Like super fucking easy. Like you're not gonna get like easier than that. I wish I literally knew all this shit back then. I think another huge thing is, let me get your thoughts before I say, what do you think about instant dates? What are your thoughts on that?
Instant dates? It depends on your skill level. So if you're someone who you can pull, right? You're already getting good results from dates. So like you're already good at getting girls' numbers and getting dates with them later, and you're going for instant dates in order to pull, that can work. But if you're new, it's kind of a waste of time, in my opinion. Like, so if you approach a girl and you have like a 5 to 10 minute conversation, you're like, okay, let's go on an instant date. Then you're going to spend another 30 minutes to an hour. And now you've invested like an hour and 10 minutes into this one interaction with one girl. A lot of the time, 5 to 10 minutes was enough for her to be like, yeah, I'd go on a date with him. Like she has enough of an impression. And in fact, if you're new to game and you spend an hour with a girl, you're more likely to show off like your worst qualities. Like you start to get needy, you start to try to impress her too much, and she changes her mind.
Yeah.
And the chances are you're not going to pull from an instant date unless you already are getting good results from dates. Like you have to do a lot of things right? You have to be very calibrated compared to if you're on a date with a girl already, right? So you get her number, you go on a date with her the next day, everything's in your favor, right? She's already set aside time in her day. She's already basically acknowledging that she's interested in you, because why go on a date with you if she's like completely uninterested? So there's low risk. Whereas if you go for an instant date with a girl that you meet in college and you spend an hour, she might have a boyfriend that she hasn't brought up. She might have somewhere to be and you have to know how to get the logistics. Right. She might just not be comfortable with like going right home with a guy from the day because it's a little socially awkward. Like from a club, that's socially normal. Girls who are adventurous will be cool with that, but not every girl is going to be. And you have to have a good understanding of what the girl's like, what she's feeling, what she's down for to be effective with that. So if instead of going for that instant date, you approach 10 other girls and got like 6 other numbers, now you've got 7 dates potentially. And at least a couple of those are going to follow through and you have a chance to make something happen. Whereas if you go for that one instant date, you only have one chance to make something happen.
Dude, I 100% agree with that. Yes, 100% agree. I think you kind of summed it up. Let me ask you this question. What are some like good, like, okay, what obviously, depends, blah, blah, blah. But like roughly speaking, out of the girls you approach, like what percentage do you feel like you get their numbers?
It depends on whether it's at a club or whether it's like day game, right? So if it's at a college, if it's a college campus, you can easily get over 50% of the girls you approach numbers.
Like just 1.5, 2, something like that.
What's that?
Like 1.5, 2, or something like that.
Yeah, easily 50%. So, I mean, unless you're doing something very wrong. If you just ask for the numbers, you're going to get a good 50% or more. And I've had people who've never approached before do that. Like they'll do 10 approaches, get 5 numbers out of that. Yep. However, if you're not very good, right? If your skill set is very low, you might only get like 5 or 10% of those numbers to actually turn into dates.
Oh.
Whereas if you're better, it might be more like, double or triple that. I would say, the last time I did day game, I got 5 girls' numbers and I ended up going on dates with 2 of them. And that's, somewhere around there is realistic if you've got the skill set down. But you should be able to at least get, say you get 10 girls' numbers, you should be able to at least get like 1 date out of that.
Yeah. So you think like 20%, out of the numbers that you get 20% date rate or something like that is pretty solid for you?
Something like that. I think it's also important though, like as you get more experience, you're going to have higher standards too.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's okay if you're new and you're not getting laid at all to like, if you have super high standards, you might kind of shoot yourself in the foot and just be like, oh, she's not a 10, so I'm not going to go for it. And you're not getting laid at all. That's kind of sad. But as you get more experience at this point, a lot of the girls, like I don't follow up with them, right? I have plenty of options. Yeah. So there's no need to follow up with every single, like if I wanted to play it as hard as possible and just like get I was just like lay count is all that matters.
Yeah.
Then I could make it higher by pursuing all of them. But like at least more than half the girls I approach, I'm not like, it's whatever. Like they're not as attractive as I initially thought, or we just don't have a good connection or whatever. Like I'm not inspired to pursue it unless they're past a certain threshold of like having really good chemistry.
Yeah. I love it when they're more attractive than you thought. Like you get a girl's number and you're like, yeah, maybe she's wearing a hoodie and you're like, she's pretty cute. And then you see her WhatsApp picture and she has like humongous tits. And like you were like, man about it. And then you're like, you see the picture and you're like, fuck yeah, like I want this chick. Like I've had that happen several times.
Like if you're meeting girls in college, because in college, actually, you're never going to meet a girl who's like a 10 by society standards because they're not really dressed up and they don't have their makeup done as well as it can be. So there will be girls who are, let's say they're an 8 by your standards. They might be a 10, but you're never going to see a bunch of 10s around in a college campus because they just look like their normal selves, right? They just whereas a club, you're going to see a lot of 10s who are actually a lot less attractive.
Wow.
You see them later, right? Once you get to know them, which is kind of funny.
Once the makeup comes off. So I want to kind of end off on this question. I like to ask this question a lot also. Why do you think there's so much bullshit in this industry?
There's tons of reasons. I think, well, first of all, if you look through the history, like anyone who's seen, if you've seen a lot of people who've given advice, like pickup coaches throughout the history, a lot of them they just gave random philosophy, random theory and didn't do anything and they pulled it off. So if you see the past that has worked, you're going to be like, well, I can do the same thing. Like I don't have to show infield. I don't have to have a high level of experience, right? I don't have to have like slept with a lot of women or whatever. I can just be the next, David D'Angelo. I can be the next Trip Advice. I've seen other people do it. It's just like fitness. You see people like V-Shred or there's a lot of frauds in that. You see these other people go viral that are clearly frauds. You're like, well, I might as well do that. So it's kind of like honey to a bear, but for marketing. Right? You see this potential, you see this niche that there's not a lot of competition in because it's less competitive than a lot of other niches. You're like, well, I'm a good marketer, so there's a lot of opportunity here.
I got laid down one time.
Yeah. And I think another part of it is because it's easy to delude yourself into thinking you're better than you are. Which basically like if someone buys your product, if someone buys your book or whatever, they're probably going to like it even if it didn't help them because you've already invested in it. And if you were to hate the book, you're almost telling yourself you're dumb. Because if you're like, okay, I've been following this guy's content, I bought his course, but it actually sucks. It actually creates cognitive dissonance because you've invested so much in this person already to now say, you know what, that was all stupid and I wasted my time is very hard to do. So what people will do is they'll buy the shitty product and they'll be like, you know what, leave a really good review, or they'll make a testimonial and be like, I feel good about what I learned from that, even though they got no tangible results. And then the coach is like, all these people are saying it's good. These are real testimonials. These are real reviews. I'm not faking that. So it must be good. I guess I'm legit as fuck. And they have no reason to think, okay, I need to be focusing on the tangible results my clients are getting, right? They don't need to focus on like, does he have a new girlfriend from approaching? Does he, they're just like, I'm getting good reviews. I'm getting good feedback. So it must be good. And they create this feedback loop where they delude themselves. And people tell you, like people even tell me like, you're the GOAT, you're a god, you're so, and you get that. And it's easy to attach that to your identity because people will say that even in a video that might not be that great, but one person really likes it and it starts to basically create this identity where you think you're like the second coming of Jesus Christ or something because you're getting this feedback. And it creates a delusional spiral. I think a lot of it is basically self-delusion is why. Because people with a big ego are more likely to be drawn to making money with a marketing platform. And those people are more susceptible. They're more narcissistic, so they're more susceptible to positive feedback and wanting to believe it.
That makes sense. And yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like, let's just say my old business partner, he, when we started, playing with fire, started taking off. He thought he was a god. He's like, look at all these people. Like, they fucking love me. I'm like, dude, it's like some nerds on the internet think we're cool. Like, we haven't accomplished shit yet. Like, we're going to go a million steps further. And he was like, already like, no, like, I don't know, holier than.
I was going to ask about that. I was curious whatever happened with that.
Yeah, it's a long story, but anyway, I have a much better business partner now, playing with fires on a much better trajectory. Everything's
a very good trajectory.
100 times better now. Yeah, man. So how can people find you? How can people follow you? How can people learn more about your content?
Yeah, the best way is definitely my YouTube channel. Check out my YouTube channel. I'm sure it'll be linked.
We'll link everything in the description.
And the second best way would be my Snapchat. I post with the coronavirus, not as much lately, but I post a lot of like live infield approaches, right? So live infield through Snapchat that's happening as it, in real time. And I post a lot on Snapchat, links to articles. My background is in writing more than videos. And you can find links to that as well.
Good stuff. All right, awesome. We'll link everything in the description below. Thank you for coming on, man. Appreciate it. I like that you keep it real, keep it at it, keep making more videos. They're very good to watch.
Thank you for having me.
For sure, bro. Talk to you later.